So the first step in solving these problems is circle the angle. The reason why we circle the angle is because it's easier to determine which one is the opposite side and which is the adjacent side. The opposite side is always across from the angle. It does not touch this angle. So this side over here with the x does not touch the angle. So I'm going to label this side as opposite. This side is a leg next to the angle. It touches the angle. So I'm going to label this side the adjacent side. Now that we've determined which sides are which, we use our formula sheet for two reasons. Number one, decide which trig function we need to use. We're given the opposite and the adjacent side. That means we use tangent. Tangent has opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to set up my equation. Tangent 25 equals. Now that I've decided to use the tangent, I need to decide how to set up the ratio. That's the second reason we look at the formula sheet. It says tangent is the opposite over adjacent. The opposite side has to go in the numerator, the adjacent has to go in the denominator. So the opposite is x, the adjacent is 250. So I have to write x over 250. So now I've set up my ratio, I need to solve for x. I need to find the length of the missing side. In this picture, it's finding the length of the building. To get x by itself, I have to multiply both sides by 250. When I multiply both sides by 250, the 250s cancel out on this side, and I get x all by itself. So now I just type this into my calculator and get an answer. So I type in 250. Make sure you type in tan 25, and I get 116.58. If I wanted to use the calculator on my computer, I have to view the scientific mode. Then I have to type this in backwards. I have to do 25 tangent. So it's saying, here's the angle 25, take the tangent of it. That's the value of tan 25. Then they say multiply by 250. So now I do times 250 equals, and I get that same answer, 116.58. Okay, let's do number 7. Same step, circle the angle. Now we label the side. In this example, the 60 does not touch the angle, so this is going to be the opposite side. I'm going to label that opposite. The x in this case, this length right here, it is next to the angle, but it's not one of the legs. It's actually the diagonal one across from the 90 degrees, so this one has to be the hypotenuse. So I'm going to label that h. So, two reasons I use my formula sheet. First, decide which trig function to use. It gives me opposite and a hypotenuse. So I have to use sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to set up my equation. So I know it's sine 28, but now the second reason I use my formula sheet, number 2, is to decide which goes on top. Does the 60 go on top or the x? Well, it says the opposite side goes on top, so that means the 60 goes on top and the x goes on the denominator. So here's my ratio. Sine 28 equals 60 divided by x. Now remember, when x is in the denominator, that means we have to divide when I enter this into my calculator. So I would enter it in like this. $60 divided by sine 28. I get 127.80. So we just found x. X equals 127.80. The length from the fire to the top of the tower, this length right here is 127.80. If I were to use my calculator on my computer, I have to type this in slightly differently. So when I type this in, I have to do sine 28 first. Remember, on this calculator you have to do it backwards. So 28 sine. Now I have to remember that number. Write it down somewhere. 0.469. 3 decimal places is fine. Now that I wrote that down, to remember, I need to do it in the correct order. So now I'm going to hit clear, and I'm going to do 60 divided by the number that I wrote down, 0.469. And there's that answer, 127. Now this is 0.93. It's slightly off because remember we only wrote down 3 numbers instead of that long number the calculator gave you. But if you have 127, that's good enough. That's fine. So that's our answer, 127.